Tonight's guest is living proof that it's never too late to chase a wild dream. At 60, Deborah Hammett retired from teaching and then set sail solo, mostly from New England to the southern Bahamas, round trip, on sailing vessel Mavia, her Jeanneau 36 sailboat. No crew, no excuses, just guts, grit, and a whole lot of growth. We'll dive into what pushed her to take the leap, the highs and lows of her voyage, and how sailing became the boldest chapter of her life. We'll talk about her book, Young Salt at 60. There's a link in the description, by the way. Hold fast. This one's inspiring. But first, if you enjoy stories like this, please like, subscribe, and share. It helps grow the channel and lets me bring you real sailing stories from real sailors. I'm Captain Tinsley of sailing vessels saltyabandon and Island Packet 320, and this is the Salty Podcast, episode 64. Please help me welcome Young Salt and 60 at 60, Deborah Hammett. Hello, hello.
Hi, Tinsley.
Good to meet you.
Me too.
Okay, we did just talk beforehand, but it's good to get to know you. I read your book over the last few days, and I got to learn a little bit about you, and I'm just fascinated. I appreciate you reaching out to me to come on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure. I appreciate it.
Let's talk about your boat real quick. I want to show a picture of it. And if you would, just tell us briefly about Mavia.
Okay. Mavia is a 36-foot Jeanneau, and she was a lake boat. I bought her on Lake Champlain, and she had really only been sailed about 3 months a year. And because, it's so cold up there, she had to be hauled out for the winter every year. And the owner was Canadian and couldn't cross to sail her for 3 summers, 2 summers because of COVID and 1 summer because he had other problems going on and couldn't cross. So when I was able to get her, she was practically a new boat. So it was wonderful.
Yeah, fresh water.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's start with a little background of your life on Martha's Vineyard, just briefly. We want to get into the sailing. What were those years like, and what did retirement look like at first?
Okay, well, I was a very ambitious, progressive teacher, and I knew everybody in my small community. And, I loved being a teacher. I loved being, in the grocery store and having the kids say, "Oh, there's Mrs. Hammett," and, being at their sports games. And my kids grew up with my students and, very, very fishbowl-ish.
Yeah.
But at the same time, after 30 years of living here, really wanted some more adventure. And after I retired, I decided I would finally have a chance to do some extensive travel on my own. Traveled around Asia, traveled in the Dominican Republic. And then I ended up meeting somebody who brought me to Vermont, where we suddenly together started watching YouTube videos and getting involved in sailing. And next thing you know, I was sailing on Lake Champlain.
And then you got you had 2 boats at one point.
Yeah. So, he bought another boat. Yeah. Because we bought this boat, Mavia, together on Lake Champlain and learned how to sail on this boat. We took ASA classes. We did a week-long ASA course in the Bahamas with a catamaran.
And did you do 101, 103, and 104 in that week class?
101, 103, 104, and 114.
What's that one? What's 114?
Catamarans.
Okay.
Yeah. So we did that, and then we came back to Lake Champlain and bought Mavia, and then for the winter we went to the Dominican Republic, and he didn't think Mavia would be well suited for the Caribbean or the Bahamas because, she didn't have any solar. She didn't, she wasn't really set up to be a cruising vessel. Plus she's at 36 feet. He didn't think she would be big enough for 2 people for, months on end. So he wanted to buy a catamaran. So he bought a catamaran in Fort Lauderdale, and we sailed the catamaran from Lauderdale up to the Chesapeake and put the catamaran on the Hard in the Chesapeake, and then went back up to Vermont for the summer, where we would sail Mavia and also try to maybe sell Mavia. So that was kind of the
Yeah, I
plan.
was reading the book and I was like, wait, what? They have a catamaran? I was confused.
Yeah,
But then I had to keep reading.
Yep.
But
So yeah, it was his catamaran, and then I sailed Mavia single-handed during the week while he was at work, in Vermont, and I really started to love single-handing.
yeah, I was zoning in on that because I know what it's like to be on there by yourself and not have to explain things or,
Mm-hmm.
even when I was learning, I thought that it was very helpful to be by myself because I didn't have the terminology, maybe even to explain it to somebody. I was just trial and error. Is that what
Exactly.
it gave you that opportunity to do trial and error?
Exactly. And also to be able to make mistakes without an audience. I
Yeah.
didn't like the idea that he was watching me when I was making mistakes. So, I made so many mistakes. It was ridiculous. The people, in the marina were so helpful, and, they were really rooting for me. They thought I could do it. And my partner, Tony, he ended up, leaving the whole sailing life behind. He didn't really like it as much as I did.
Right.
And I ended up buying him out, and our relationship sort of dissolved because, you know what? I was in love with sailing,
Yeah.
and and he was in love with work. And so, it kind of, it really just didn't work well. And so we went our separate ways, and I bought my half, the other half of Mavia, and started to prep her to go south down
Well,
through
did you
now.
when you guys were saying in the book when you're saying that it wasn't good for the Bahamas and it wasn't big enough for two people, do you still feel that way?
No, well, I love my boat. I absolutely do. This boat is perfect for me for single
Just one.
handling because, yeah, all of the lines lead back to the cockpit. I never have to leave the cockpit when I'm underway. And, at this size, I can dock her well enough. She doesn't have bow thrusters, but
Me neither.
I have figured out how to deal with that. I have figured out how to hold her in position, when I'm waiting for bridges and things like that. So
That's the best training if you have to go through. I remember going through 9 bridges in one day. By the end of that day, I was like, oh, I can do anything.
yeah, Florida, right?
Yeah, on the west coast of Florida.
Oh, the ICW in Florida, on the East Coast, I believe there's like 26 bridges between, North Florida and Miami, is crazy. And, and I have learned that I am not doing anything on the ICW on weekends anymore.
Yeah.
It's too insane. But the boat is the perfect size for me. I've got 2 cabins, and it sort of feels like it's enough of a home. I try to keep both cabins set up like nice bedrooms, so I feel like I'm in.
And rather than shoving a bunch of stuff in one.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want it to look like I have, 3 or 4 closets. I have a garage in my boat because it is it's a boat that the design could have been for 2 cabins or for 3. So this is the 2 cabin version, and the 3rd cabin is
storage.
Is storage. Yeah, but it's set up that way. So the door, so what you get for the 2 cabin version is you get an enclosed shower area in the bathroom in the head, and then behind that there is a garage. Put folding bike in there. I can put, all sorts of stuff in there.
Oh man, or a generator or an extra generator.
Yeah.
So tell us where you are right now.
So I am in Oak Bluffs in my hometown right now, and I just got here a couple of days ago. And I am in a mooring field that is soon to be very, very busy. In this harbor, they anchor, I mean, they moor 4 boats to a mooring,
Whoa.
rafted up. Hmm. And for $50 a night, each of those 4 boats is paying $50 a night to be rafted up, and there's not a heck of a lot of room in between the moorings to begin with.
I mean, like, you're going to be talking to your neighbor. I mean, you're right.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to be. So
Okay.
I'm going to get out of here and, go
Wow.
to,
That's fine if it's somebody you know, but goodness. I mean, they can
yeah.
hear you coughing in your boat or something, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have some sneaky quieter spaces I can
Oh,
find
good.
for anchoring. Yeah. But that's what happens when you live here for 30 years. You get to find out those sneaky quiet spaces.
Yeah, we're gonna bring up. I like to ask people what their favorite, or sometimes it's hard for people to choose a
Mhm.
favorite anchorage, and we'll do that. Let me see. What was your biggest fear going into the journey, and how did you push through it?
Um, well, okay. So I think my biggest fear going in was, I think when I got to New York City after going down the Hudson River,
I
I,
guess we should say that you sailed from Massachusetts to the southern Bahamas and back by yourself. Mostly, you had a couple of instances. So, in
yeah.
case I haven't said that, that's what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, but I sailed from Lake Champlain. Initially, I brought the boat from Lake Champlain to the southern Exumas and then
Right.
back to Massachusetts to
Right.
Martha's Vineyard. So, but when I was first coming down the Hudson River and I got to New York, I had read about a mooring field at a marina just before the George Washington Bridge. And I thought this will be good because then I can stay the night. It's going to be getting dark. And then I can wait until morning to deal with, New York Harbor and all that stuff.
Right.
So
I'm
it
smiling
was
because I
kind of
remember this from the book.
it was kind of rainy. Yeah, it was kind of rainy, and it was getting dark. And I was going in there, and I saw just a couple of dilapidated boats, small derelict boats on 2 of the maybe 75 moorings that were there. The other moorings were vacant, and there was nobody at the dock. There weren't any boats at the dock. But I had called the guy ahead of time and I said, hey, I'm coming in. He said, oh, yeah, come on in. There's, grab a mooring, tie up for the night, and you can come and pay in the morning. I was like, okay, well, that sounds, reasonable. So I came in and I grabbed a mooring, and I realized all the homeless camp under the bridge, they were all watching me come in, and there I was, obviously a single woman tying up to this mooring, and I was like, oh my God, like what?
And they saw that it was just you, right?
They saw
That's
that it was just me.
yeah.
And then I actually grew up in Westchester and New York, about an hour north of New York City. And when I would go into the city, my parents would always warn me not to go to Harlem. And I realized that was Harlem. I was
Yeah.
I was in Harlem within view of all the homeless people in Harlem, tying up my boat in the rain at night alone. And I just had to, I just looked to my higher power. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not a churchy person, but I had God with me on that trip. That's for sure. And I just said, God, this is totally going to be up to you. And I'm just going to believe in the best of these people. And I'm just going to tie up and go to sleep. And I did. And somehow I just, managed to put that fear out of my head. And the next morning I got up and I brought the boat over to the dock, tied up, went and talked to the guy. Nicest guy. So, incredibly nice. He took my trash for me. He helped me untie. And I thought, wow, expect the best of people.
Yeah.
Always expect the best of people. Be cautious, but everybody's not out to kill me just
No.
because they're homeless.
Luckily.
Yeah.
So Jessica Thibodeau has a message here for you. Hi, Deb. I'm from MV2, graduated MVRH 1981, so a little
Oh,
older than you. Starting
no
my
kidding.
sailing journey on our HR 39 in September. Hope to see you out there.
Oh,
That's so
cool.
cool. So
Yeah,
she's
really
from,
cool.
do you know her, Jessica Thibodeau?
Uh, Jessica Thibodeau. No, but I know the
She's
name.
got a good Louisiana name. That's how I know how to say it.
Yeah. Well, 1981. I graduated from high school in 1980 in New York. I didn't go to Martha's Vineyard High School, but
Ah,
I came here. I washed ashore to the vineyard in 1983,
well,
right after. Yeah.
oh, well, cool, Jessica. I hope that you are subscribed because I would love to talk to you sometime. So if you want to, let's see, I'll put my email up here. Boom, email me, please. Would love to talk to you. Okay, so where was there a specific turning point on your voyage that made you realize I can really do this?
Yeah. At one point, I went in for fuel in the Chesapeake, and
Yeah.
it was I think it was Galesville in the Chesapeake. And I went in for fuel, and I actually managed to dock the boat without my heart rate going up. And the girl came out to help me tie up, but I was basically already tied up by myself. And so I really didn't need much assistance at all. And then I was able to leave the dock, and I was just as cool as a cucumber, as calm as could be. And I thought, I'm really getting the hang of this.
Yeah.
That wasn't even scary at all. I mean, granted, there wasn't like this ferocious current and weather and all that, but it was a turning point in terms of the way in terms of how I was dealing emotionally with docking.
You've gotten comfortable with it, which comes with practice.
Yeah.
I have gone south every year since 2016, except for 2024, and have been in so many marinas and so many different situations, different wind, different tides, different by myself. Sometimes there's somebody there, sometimes there's not. And
Mm-hmm.
it just takes practice. Wouldn't you
Mm-hmm.
agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't times still where I get nervous. Like I had to back in the other day in Block Island, and and it was
Is that
racing.
Rhode Island?
Yeah, and there were it was just the other day, right on my way up to the vineyard, and there were tons of race boats because it was race week, and they could only squeeze me in one area in the dock. There was a little miscommunication. I told them I would be tying up on the port, but when I got there, the only possibility was to either tie up on the starboard or back in. But so anyway, I backed in. It was fine, but I had to go dangerously close to very skinny water, 2 feet deep water, while I was sort of making my impromptu U-turn. So it was a little dicey.
Yeah, you have to be ready for anything
Yeah.
coming in and out of a dock.
Yeah.
Because you just never know. It's never going to go the way you want. Like you were talking about prop walk in the book. I'm going to bring the book up here. This is the book. What? That's not it. There we go. Very nice cover, by the way. It shows the boat. I want to say something about this book. I read a book for my guest last week, and there was a lot of jargon in it, and it was okay for me, but I noticed I looked at, and there's nothing wrong with that. I looked at the reviews, and there was new people that said, oh, he used a lot of jargon. And that's great because he was talking about going around the world and people can look stuff up. But I like that your book, it's so perfect, I think, for beginners, because you explain a lot of the jargon and how to do things. And I've recommended it to somebody who I want to sail with me this fall. I said, I think you need to read this book. And she already downloaded it, and she's going to listen to it. Because it really takes you from the beginning about how to do things and explains, what the different parts are and the jargon. So
Yeah.
what was your thought process in that? Is that what you were going for?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. I was tutoring and teaching online while I was doing my single-handed voyage to the Exumas and back.
Yeah.
And a sailor really shouldn't have a schedule because it forces you to make poor choices.
Yeah.
The choices really
You talked about that.
mostly about the weather and not about your teaching schedule. So,
right.
so I thought, maybe I can afford to abandon this teaching thing. And, I actually did. But then I found myself with a total lack of purpose. I'm like, okay, so what am I doing? I'm just flitting around the world in my sailboat without contributing anything to anybody. And I'd always had like this deep sense of purpose about my teaching. And I thought, well, I could teach somebody how to do what I'm doing.
Okay.
But I don't have time to teach lessons online. And I'm 63 years old, and these YouTubers in their string bikinis, down there, spearfishing, I can't really keep up with that. So I decided that instead I'm going to write a book, because people my age still read books.
Yeah. Or listen.
Yeah. So I thought, I can write a book, and I can be really clear. I can use my teaching skills to do that. And, when you teach elementary school for your whole adult life, you learn how to be very clear and specific with language, because if you don't, when you've got 25 kids trying to interpret what you're saying, they could be going all different directions. So.
Right. And you got to keep their attention while you're making your point. But yeah, again, if you're watching or listening, because this is all will be on the audio podcast as well, or watching in the replay, this is an excellent book if you're starting out. It's also interesting if you're a veteran, so whatever. But if you want to really listen to one person's how she started, all the doubts that happen, I really like how you described how you figured out how to fix things. I mean, you were trial and error, and then if you couldn't do it, you go ask somebody hey, what do you think? And I just think it's a great read for anybody, really.
Yeah, and we're lucky now to have YouTube. Before YouTube, I don't know how people figured all this stuff out. Especially if you're not mechanically inclined. So for me, it was really tricky to figure some of these things out. And I had to watch YouTube videos and, watch a little bit and stop it and go do it, and then watch a little bit more and stop it and go do it. And every time I took something apart, I had to take pictures of it along the way to make sure that I would be able to put it back together in the same way without forgetting a screw or something. So yeah, I am learning, but boy, there's a lot to learn on the sailboat. The water system, the electrical system, the diesel engine.
Speaking of, you mentioned one time, and my ear caught it, online diesel class. Sign me up for that. What is that? Where did you do this? What?
Well,
website?
I actually I can't remember the one that I took, but it was about 4 hours long. I can't remember where I found it, but Calder now has one, not just for electrical, but for diesel. And if I were going to do it again, I might consider taking his. Calder is the guy that wrote the book about, Nigel Calder wrote the book about marine electronics.
Oh, I would like that too. Do they have a class for that?
That's like the marine electronic Bible for sailors.
Okay.
By Nigel Calder. But he is now doing these YouTube courses.
Yeah.
And he did an electrical one, but he's also offering a diesel one. And, so I need to do something related to electrical. So
Yeah.
I took the diesel one, and I have a pretty good handle on how my diesel system works. But the electrical system is really
Yeah, well, I always say I don't want to start a fire, so I'm just going to call somebody a professional. But I do need to learn how to do it. I mean,
yeah,
because I'm not giving this up anytime soon. I'll be until I jump in the box. You know, my end
yeah,
of my life, I'll be sailing. So,
yeah.
yeah, eventually, I keep saying that on these videos. I will. I'm going to take these classes. So, is it Calder, Calder?
Yes,
Okay,
Nigel, Nigel.
right. Okay, I'm going to check that out.
Hmm.
Um, Again, if you would like to get this book, I included a link. Please use the link in the description for Deborah's book. I was jotting down when I was driving down the road listening. I wasn't looking. I was riding and driving, and so it's kind of messy. But the propane tip, I I didn't even think of that. You said you turn it off before you turn the flame off. Turn the switch off at the breaker off, and let it burn out, and then turn it off. Is that?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
didn't even. I didn't. That's probably
Yeah.
obvious to a lot of people, but there could still be the gas in the
In
line.
the line. Yeah.
Tip of
Yeah.
the day.
I
That's the tip
learned
of the
that.
day.
Yeah, I learned that in sailing school. Yeah.
I
I
don't
really did have
remember that.
I had a great instructor at Cruise Abaco, Captain Joe, and he was really wonderful.
Well,
I hear his voice in my head, when I'm
yeah,
tying a cleat hitch, two rivers and a bridge, and, just all sorts of things that he said, slow is pro, neutral is your friend,
right.
like,
Neutral is your friend.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I remember. Don't look at what you don't want to hit.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's
Did
right.
Jim like that one? Was he
Yeah.
talking?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one that I always, if you're looking at the piling, don't be looking at that if you don't want to hit it.
Yeah.
Look at the number inside the slip.
Yeah.
And so far, so good on that. But let's see. I can't even read this. Yeah, I found it fascinating that you met somebody that their aunt or your aunt 100 years ago sailed from Lake Champlain to New York City.
Yeah. A great aunt. Yeah. A great aunt. She had sailed from Lake Champlain to New York City. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. 100 years ago, that was,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know. I
how
know. This is
how
my
many women solo sailors were out there 100 years ago? Apparently, there was
exactly.
one.
Exactly. It was my mom's aunt, and she was a go-getter, and
Yep.
she did all kinds of gutsy stuff. Real.
Are there pictures?
Yeah, she was a badass. No, but I have the her name that came off. It's a piece of brass that was attached to her boat. It's called the Molly Brawn. Uh-huh.
Wow.
So
Okay.
pretty cool.
Um, you mentioned confronting old beliefs during your time at sea. Can you share about that?
Um, well, yeah, I mean, just the whole thing about the prejudices that I have in my mind. Being having lived in Westchester, New York, and then Martha's Vineyard for 35 years, the I'm not really exposed to like the depths of inner city um, stuff. And, just like the thing about tying up in, under the George Washington Bridge. And there was another time when I actually had an accident. I fell into the water when I was moving way too fast, and I was trying to leave the dock. Um, and I stepped off the dock onto a real sketchy dock, and I missed the piling. Somehow I missed the piling, and the piling hit me in the sternum on the way down,
Yeah.
and I hit my leg on the dock on the way down. And then I was in the water, and it was a Monday. The marina was closed. Nobody was around. And but there had been this guy, this like 30 something year old guy,
Oh
at
yeah.
in a derelict boat, with like, the plywood companionway door, and the whole hadn't looked like it hadn't left the dock in a century, and no lines on it, nothing. And when I had left my boat at this marina because it was cheap, no
Yeah.
amenities, right? I
No.
left my boat there, and I flew to Boston to see my kids. And when I came back, I was in a hurry to take advantage of a weather window, and I'm running, and I'm getting ready to leave the dock. I fall in, I'm screaming, and I'm getting swept under the dock in the current, onto the pilings are filled with barnacles, and the current is strong, too strong for me to be able to swim to my transom to get back on the boat. And so I was really, really scared. And this kid from the derelict boat comes out, and he saved me. He
Oh,
jumped on my boat, and he threw me a line, and he dragged me to the transom, and I was able to get out. But when I was wheeling away my luggage bag to get in an Uber, leaving my boat there for the week, this is the kid that I was worried about, that he was going to, do something bad to my boat.
right.
Because, Mavia is, the queen of the marina in some marinas. And she's also looking like a derelict boat in other marinas. It depends on, because there's all kinds of marinas. But
Depends on the yachts. If there's a
it
bunch of
depends on the yacht,
yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, I learned, don't be so quick to judge people, and and just all the political stuff. I think the South is more conservative, and as I was heading south, I would hear people say things that would be like, "Whoa, you can't get away with saying that up north," like.
Yeah.
Um, but really good people,
Yeah.
good people with all sorts of, experiences and prior knowledge, and, just even the whole thing about the gender bias, my own gender bias, my expectations about what men are going to think when they see me sailing my own boat single-handed,
Yeah.
um, so I've learned a lot about don't project, because what I get back is like tremendous respect from most men. So I get that most of the time. I do get some, condescending behaviors other times, but I need to really like continue to expect the best
Yeah.
uh, from
Well,
every.
I have found that when I come into a marina and I always say I handled it like a boss. It feels
Yeah,
good when you come in a difficult situation.
yeah,
It's the men that'll stop me on the dock. I really like how you handled your boat. I'm
yes,
so
yes,
impressed. They
yes,
didn't have to say it, and even a lot older than me, they didn't have to do that.
yes.
They didn't have to say anything.
That's right.
I
That's
didn't
right.
even know they were watching. I welcome them. If there's a whole line of people at the restaurant, I'm like, it doesn't bother me anymore.
Yeah,
I used when I first, it kind of was a little, well, all the eyeballs on you, could feel it burning a hole in you.
yeah, they do watch. That's the
But
that is one thing that's 100% consistent. Is that
yeah,
when I'm coming
everybody
into the
wants to
dock,
watch that.
everybody's watching. Yeah,
And when you see the couples coming in arguing,
yeah,
it's like a show.
yeah,
But the sailing community is the boating community, especially the sailing community, is so giving, and they share their knowledge, and they're always willing to help. And I just really love that about the sailing community.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. I have been so scared in different situations, and I have gotten such generous help from other sailors.
Generous, that's a good word.
Yeah, people who will give up a couple hours of their time without batting an eye just to help me, figure out. I had somebody in Exuma come to my boat, and he helped me figure out a fuel leak, and it was such an obvious thing. When he found it, I was like, "Oh my God, how stupid I that I couldn't have found this."
You'll know next time.
Yeah, but he found it. He tightened it up. Everything was great, and I gave him a tuna fish sandwich, and and he was on his way, and it was awesome.
Well, I've
These,
heard that about, especially about Georgetown.
yeah, Georgetown's amazing.
Yeah, you can just
Yeah.
about get anything done. You can trade stuff. People have
Yep.
parts. They
They
have
have.
services.
I stayed for 3 months this year in Georgetown. Yep.
Well, I hope to get there this year.
Hmm.
This
There
October,
were.
well, leave Gulf Shores, Alabama in October, and I have a friend, Key West John. He's I give everybody nicknames. He's in Key West, obviously, and we're probably going to buddy boat. Now he can fix anything.
Hmm.
The sailing part, I'm good,
Yeah.
but if I need someone, he's going to be there. So
Yeah.
that's
It's the
comforting.
fixing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely the fixing. And, Exuma is fantastic because in Georgetown, you can get your propane, you can get your water, your groceries.
Right.
Everything is designed for cruisers.
But I've heard that you may not be able to get like a part or like a screw or
Oh, no,
certain.
no, no. You can't. That's the
Yeah.
whole Bahamas. Yeah. Don't count on getting anything.
And that's when calling people on the sail net, anybody have a this or that? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I've got one, and they come and bring it to you on their dinghy.
Yeah.
And
I had to bum a raw water pump belt from somebody. Yeah.
and you were
It
able to get
wasn't the
the
right size, but it got
oh
back to Florida. Yeah,
yeah
it was almost the right size. Talk
oh
about a
wow
nail biter. I was a
yeah
little nervous.
yeah that's kind of important.
Yeah, yeah.
What kind of reactions did you get from your friends and family when you did this? When you started talking about it?
Um, really, Mom?
It's like you've never even talked about sailing.
Yeah, I think they were just a little confused. Yeah, they were a little confused, and I think it's taken them a while to wrap their minds around it. And they've come sailing on Mavia a few times, and I mean, it was tough because it was very, very different from my conservative little life of
You were in this
going
box
to school every day.
and you were
Yeah,
going outside of that box.
very
Yeah.
much so. Very much so. But I had taken my kids on trips to the Caribbean a lot, solo, because my ex-husband didn't like to travel, and and school vacations, it would be all me with the kids,
Right.
taking them to the Caribbean because I wanted to go to the Caribbean in February on school vacation week.
Sure.
So I found like really cheap interior cabin cruise tickets, and me and three little girls in an interior cabin for a week, but I would be shuffling them all over, to the BVI's and on the boat, off the boat, that sort of thing, with a whole bunch of old people.
Yeah.
But then I got old, so hey.
Bite your tongue on that. Don't say that. How did solo sailing challenge you emotionally, not just physically?
Oh, well, I just had to muscle up and do things myself because there was nobody there to help me. And I couldn't, I could cry and I could scream and I could panic, and I did all of those things regularly. But the end of it was just me. So I had to get my act together. I had to calm down. I had to focus. I had to take a deep breath, and I had to look at what is going on here, assess the problem.
Yeah.
So, panic is not really helpful when you're trying to assess a problem. So I think I really just learned that the sooner I can get analytical, the better.
I just wanted to show this. You're fixing your squeaky wheel here. Doing your video. Yeah, and you were talking about changing the impeller. There was a lot of projects you described in the book.
Yeah.
It's going to be very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, changing an impeller is easy for me now. Changing the oil is easy for me now. Getting the alternator to move over enough so that I can change the alternator belt and the raw water pump belt is, annoying and hard, but I think I could probably do it if I didn't have help. I have had help. I haven't had to do it totally alone.
It's that getting the belt tight and getting a big screwdriver
Yes.
and stretching it out and then tightening everything. That's a challenge.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Getting the bolts off in order to move the alternator.
Yeah, getting the bolts on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Like tying my dinghy so that it doesn't swing, because,
Yeah.
I have davits and it has to be tied crisscross, so that it doesn't swing forward and back, so it doesn't swing side to side, so it doesn't swing up and down. So I have about 5 lines that are strategically placed now, and that dinghy is rock solid. But let me tell you, it has taken me about 2 years to figure it out.
You got to get the right combination of crisscross of lines.
Yeah. Yeah.
I related to your comments about being a solo woman sailor. I found it definitely has its upside. We were just kind of talking about that. Even when I need men are willing to help. That's, like if I need some lifting, there's a couple times like when I want to put my dinghy engine, you said you have a pulley system. I don't have, but I would say, hey, can you help? And they'll come and pick up it's a 30-pound, awkward 30 pounds to get it off that railing. But there's always some nice man going by.
Yeah.
And it only takes him, a minute.
Well,
but then I'm all good to go.
I haven't had those nice men coming by. I've had jet skis coming by, waking me, relentlessly while I'm trying to lift the 30-pound.
Oh, that's no good.
I have a 6 horsepower. I have a 6 horsepower Yamaha engine, and I haul it up. I'm going to show you right now. So
yeah, let's see it.
There's my dinghy engine. You see?
Beautiful.
You like it?
I do. What did you put stickers on it? What is that?
Oh, I painted it.
You painted. That's good. And people was probably less likely to steal it.
Exactly. That was the whole point. But I have to lift that thing up onto, this block that's right here, on the side.
I have that exact what's that thing called that you put down? You put the mount, the engine, the mount. Yeah, I have that exact one. Yeah, they're not cheap, are they?
They are not cheap. Exactly.
Anything that's to do with boats.
Yeah.
Now, would you say to someone nearing retirement who feels like it's too late to try some, what would you say to that person if they think it's too late?
I would say that is absolutely not true, that you can achieve anything that you want to achieve. And honestly, when we're 30 years old, we're looking at the future, like, we can decide to be something. We can make a decision to become something at the age of 30, and it can work out. It can work out really, really well. And you can have a whole career and a whole, run a business. You can do all those things. People start businesses at 30 and they do, unbelievably well. But at 60, people don't start things as easily and with as much hope. And I think that becoming retired can't be enough. Being retired and just doing a little more traveling, maybe, doing a little bit more resting, maybe more gardening, whatever. But to go all in with something new and different is something that I think everybody can do, and it can also prolong your life.
Yeah.
Because
you were talking about that, I think, with the mind and physically
learning. The research shows that learning really fends off dementia, and and certainly when you're doing something like this that requires physical strength, I have to really spend a lot of time making sure that I stay fit,
Right.
I have to have some agility. I have to have balance. I have to have some upper body strength in order to
Hmm.
lift that engine and do 100 other things on the boat. And, it's all part of it. And I feel like all of those things together are going to keep me uh, in shape and able to do this for a few more years.
Yeah, I just turned 60. I've never actually said my age on my YouTube channel. I've had it since 2015. So I just turned 60. I have been working out with a trainer for 16 years. When I first started thinking about this, I thought, well, when I'm going to be doing this when I'm retirement age, or I'm a real estate agent, I really don't have to retire. But I think that has really helped. I think it's very important. It does, like you said, with the flexibility, the balance, all those things. Being on a sailboat, you really you get tested with the balance, wouldn't you say? And occasionally the strength.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden something will happen where you got to bring it all
Yeah.
to save
Yeah.
yourself.
Exactly.
No,
Exactly. Turning the winches, it's
yeah,
hard. I don't have any electric winches.
no,
It's
me
all
neither.
biceps.
Well, Shauna Caps says, "Ladies, you inspire me. Thank you for sharing all this. Thank you. Is it Shauna? Or I guess it's Shauna. Thank you, Shauna, for saying that."
Thanks,
Um,
Shauna.
so here's a few rapid fire questions. What's one mindset shift that helped you grow fat most as a sailor? We might have kind of covered that.
Um, One mindset, well, that I can do it, that I can fix mechanical things,
Ah, yeah. You can
because
learn about a diesel engine at 60.
well,
How many people say that?
my default is I can't do it, but I actually can if I just, get centered, and I have YouTube to help me. I have people
Chat
around
GPT. Chat
usually. Oh
GPT
yeah,
is great.
ChatGPT, and um, I have usually I'm in marinas, or not in a marina, but in
Near it.
anchorages
Yeah.
where I'm close enough to other sailors. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I just lost my train of thought. I was going to make a really important point. Oh, I know what it is. I get a lot of people saying I could never do that. I'm sure you've heard that. And I've just, what my response has become now? Well, you would if you really wanted to. You just don't want to.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Don't
right.
you think people do what they want to do?
People do what they want to do. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people want to be comfortable,
Right.
right? So taking a risk and doing something that requires a tremendous amount of energy and quite possibly a lot of discomfort in order to access, beautiful, pristine beaches, in the tropics in your own boat, and, be able to watch sunsets and have a 360-degree water view every night and live on a boat. And I mean, it is wonderful.
And
But
it
it
gets
is
you
all
through those uncomfortable crossings. It'll get you through the infuriating, what's the word? Um, repairs that come up, and
yes,
it might be one at a time. Boom, 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 boom. No,
yes, yeah.
you
But
really have to have that goal, that end goal in mind.
yeah, yeah. And when I can sit, on a mooring, and I'm, watching the sun go down right now, and, it just doesn't get any better, really.
Sure.
Coming up in the morning and seeing, a harbor that's like as smooth as glass. Sometimes I'm in storms, and, it's crazy, and I don't know if I'm going to make it. I'm anchored in a storm, and I don't know if I'm going to drag, and, it can get wild, but it's worth it. Yeah.
Who would you say has influenced you the most in your life? It could be sailing. It could be anything.
Oh, my dad.
Would you say he influenced? Was he influential with you in pushing through to do something like this?
Well, my dad raised me not to be a wimp.
Right. Okay.
So
Nice.
I was never allowed to be a wimp. I was not spoiled that way, not that way. Although, but he influenced me, and he as a do-it-yourselfer. Also, he was very much a do-it-yourselfer, and
So he's probably talking in your ears like, you know, fix
mm,
it. Try to fix it. Try to fix it yourself.
yeah, not that, yeah, pretty much,
His words, meaning like
yeah,
from the
yeah,
past.
yeah, or yelling at me,
Oh, yeah.
like
Well, you're
like
not a Gen
what are you
Xer, you're a
doing?
baby boomer, but we're built differently. You're almost a Gen Xer.
Yeah, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? But
What
yeah,
now, what do you miss most about your life before sailing? Because you don't have a house. Yeah, you've got one in the DR,
kids,
but
kids.
your kids being young,
No, just children in general.
you miss that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay.
Interacting with
Well,
kids,
your being a teacher and all.
teacher, and especially when I was a principal, I had 1,000 children in the building. It was a lot of kids, and they were awesome. And I was like,
Wow.
when you're the principal, you're like famous. So that was,
You're a rock star at the
yeah,
school.
yeah. I miss that.
When you're out there alone, what brings you the most peace?
Um, Turning off the engine.
I love that. I remember the first time
So,
that happened, I was like, "Whoa," and it was moving,
yeah.
catching that
Yep.
wind.
When you get the sails set and you've got, an awesome point of sail and the wind is great and the seas are flat and you can turn that engine off and suddenly everything just goes, you know.
Yeah, it's indescribable the way all of a sudden you realize the wind is moving you, and you're not. I don't even know if I have the words for it.
Mhm.
It was an unbelievable feeling the first
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
Um, one fear you had at the beginning that's no longer a fear at all, or almost not at all.
Um, Navigation.
Ah,
Navigation. I don't have any problems with navigation anymore. I have apps. I know how to use them. I have a chart plotter and the AIS. I know how the ICW works. I know, about
bridges, stopping for bridges.
bridges,
Say
shoaling,
to the bridges.
what to say to the bridge. All of
Mhm.
that stuff is stuff that I can't believe I was ever nervous about that,
Yeah,
because it's easy right now. Yeah, to do that. Yeah,
practice.
I kind of feel like I could go. I kind of feel like I could go anywhere. You know,
Nice.
um, yeah, I kind of feel like I could go anywhere. Crossing
Well,
the Atlantic would be. I wouldn't do it in Mavia, but I
no,
no.
she's not a blue water boat.
No, not a blue water boat. Not like your boat. Your boat is your boat is, the opposite,
Yeah.
because, you've got a heavy ocean going vessel with a full keel, and, but your boat is slower. So if you and I had a race, I got to tell you, I'd probably win.
This is true. This is true. But fortunately, I don't race. So,
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't want to in your boat.
yeah, no, it would be a little slow.
Yeah.
What's more important at sea, preparation or adaptability?
Adaptability.
Yeah, I would.
Adaptability for sure.
One sailing moment you'll never forget,
Um,
besides turning off the engine.
One sailing moment I'll never forget, was rounding Hatteras and being on night watch and seeing boats, or what I thought I saw
Oh
boats
yeah, yeah.
appearing out of nowhere, and they weren't on the AIS, and I didn't know what was going on. There was one boat, and then there was another boat, and the next thing you know, I'm like surrounded by 12 boats. So I went down and I woke up my partner and I said, these boats are coming out of nowhere. I don't know what's going on. Something's happening. And he said, those are stars.
That's just hard to believe. That is.
I had no sense of distance. And so, and you know, it was like suddenly the sky opened up and the stars were magnificent. You know, like an hour later when they were all like, we could see everything. It was unbelievable.
So it was just that clear. They looked up close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So I do want to bring up I like to bring up favorite anchorage. So you sent me 3. Which one would you like?
Okay, so I guess my favorite anchorage would be Sand Dollar Beach at Exuma.
Okay.
Well, Stocking Island, which is near Georgetown.
Okay, so Stocking Island. Let me Exuma. Okay. Once I zone in, I'll bring it up. Oh yeah. Okay. This is by Chat and Chill.
Well, it's actually south of Chat and Chill.
Okay.
So if you go south of Chat and Chill, about a half a mile.
And what is it close to?
It's called Sand Dollar Beach. And
okay, I see it. Okay, let me bring it up.
Yeah. There's a mooring field there, but there's also a few anchoring spots. And I really like to be there because it's far enough away from Chat and Chill.
So let me show where this is. So we're in the Bahamas. This is the Exumas. There's Georgetown. There's the Chat and Chill. A lot of people know there's Stocking Island. So it's right at the tip here.
Mm-hmm.
Sand Dollar Beach. So
yep.
Where exactly?
Yep. So Sand Dollar Beach, right in there.
Right here?
Yep. Right there.
How deep is that?
Well, you have to go out. Actually, no, you have to go out a little farther. It's right. You see where it turns blue, where it turns darker blue.
Right here.
Yeah. So right after it turns darker blue, anywhere along in there.
Like right even up. Can you go up in here?
Go the other way. Yeah. Go the other way, up toward Chat and Chill.
Okay, right here or a little further?
Right there. Right here. Right there. Uh-huh.
I don't see any boats there right now.
Nope.
And what do you like about that spot? You're kind of far from everything. Well, I guess that's what you like about it.
Exactly. That's what I like about it. And do you see that whole area where it's very light blue? At low tide, you can put your dinghy over there. Yeah, it is the most magnificent beach at low tide. And
is there a lot of people in there?
No.
Oh, nice.
And you can tie your dinghy up and you can walk the trails. There's trails that go along the perimeter there.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Okay, and so how long did you anchor right here?
Oh gosh, I anchored there a month, I guess.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And when you needed stuff, how far is this a dinghy ride that you?
Yeah. It's about a 5 to 10 minute dinghy ride.
Oh, that's not
over
bad.
To Chat and Chill, and then but you can't buy anything at Chat and Chill really, other than it's like a little restaurant.
And you have to go over here.
Restaurant. Yeah, you have to go over to Georgetown, and that's maybe a 10-15 minute dinghy ride.
Not bad.
But they have everything.
Okay.
Georgetown has everything.
Almost everything. Maybe not parts, right?
Well,
some parts, not,
like, they might have parts like, I don't know, a screwdriver. You might be able to buy a screwdriver.
Yeah. I had someone tell me that people will, if they need something and someone's flying home, like for a week.
Yes,
or something,
exactly.
People will say, oh, I need this, I need that. Can you bring it back?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely, and that's the only way, really. Um, there is a place called Brown's, and they do have a marine store there. So, but it's these places are really hit or miss.
Right.
So I can't even say what you might be able to find there because it's totally random.
Okay.
So you might be able to find like the bulb squeeze line for your dinghy, gas engine, your dinghy gas line, um, or you might be able to find flashlights, or you might be able to find shackles.
Okay. And so you need to bring your parts. You need to bring your spare parts.
Oh yeah,
Tip of the
definitely.
day. Tip of the day.
Well, a sailor is only as good as her spare parts, and that's why I love my garage because I can fit lots of spare parts.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what your spare part list looks like. So you, since you took the trip and I guess you wrote the book while you were sailing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've since taken another trip,
Yeah,
and
so
you
I
did
did
this
it
again.
again. I did it again. So I went. In September of last year. I sailed down again to the Exumas, and I spent 3.5 months in Georgetown or that area.
What
And
month? What months did you stay there?
I crossed on New Year's. I crossed on New Year's Eve, both
Okay.
years actually. It
And
just
you,
happened to work out that way that I crossed from No Name Harbor in Florida over to Bimini
okay.
on New Year's Eve. And so then I was there until last year. I left on March 15th. This year, no, last year I left on March 5th. And this year I left on March 15th.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going, hopefully, I shared with you that I lost my husband. And so my goal is to, right now I'm a little afraid I might be really sad, so I'm giving myself some time, but in October it'll be a year. So I'm thinking I'm going to try, or I will not try, to go down there if all works out. And are you going to be this winter? Are you going to be down there?
That's my plan.
Oh, good. I'll get to meet you in person.
Yeah, that's my plan. So I plan to do the same thing again. Yep. I might have crew for more of the time going down the East Coast because the ICW, it just gets so tedious. And
It's a lot of work
it's
because you
just
can't put it on autopilot, and you're just having to.
and it's cold in the fall. And the
Yeah.
days are really short, which is
Right.
why the whole trip takes a long time because I don't stay out offshore overnight when I'm single-handed. So I have to come in, and that means coming in through the long channels, which takes about an hour, and then I anchor, got to find an anchor, and then the next day do the whole thing all over again. So I can go more than twice as fast if I have crew. So
Wow.
I'm going to try to have crew, and then I'll be able to stay. I'll be able to stay here on the vineyard until around October 15th, and then be able to still get to the Bahamas by around New Year's, maybe before.
So it takes you. How long does it take you to get to Key Biscayne?
Well, okay, I shouldn't say that it would take that long because for the past few trips I've stopped in North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
My
See
mom
your
lives in North Carolina, and I put Mavia on the hard to have some stuff done, but she should not need, knock on wood, she should not need a haul out on my way back down south. So I might actually
famous
be
last
able,
words.
yeah, I'm hoping that I'll be able to leave here October 15th, and then maybe I'll even be able to be in the Bahamas by Thanksgiving.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you heard it here. Deborah's going to be there. Hopefully, I'm going to be there. Knock on wood. And it'd be fun. It sounds like it's going to be a party down there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Georgetown is really fun. I really come to enjoy it.
Now, you said it was okay if I ask you this. So you don't drink, and you
I
haven't for a long time.
No, I am an alcoholic, and I have not had a drink since 1992.
Okay, and you shared that, and I shared that with you. I also don't drink since '94. And you see on YouTube and Instagram, you see people, drinking Mai Tais and tequila sunrises. And I just like it that you're showing people how to do it with no drinking and no mood altering stuff. And then it's still fun, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, I've never sailed under the influence of anything.
Well, yeah, the way I drank, I would not be able to do this.
The goal probably wouldn't have been achieved.
The goal would not have been achieved. That's a nice way of saying it.
Definitely helps when you don't have that ball and chain to be able to complete tasks and long-term goals.
Exactly.
So with that, I'll close it out, and I want to talk to you again. And I can think of many topics, like we can talk about before you leave. You could talk about your prep before we can. There's just all kinds of things we could. I'd like to reconvene and have another conversation.
Awesome.
And say hi to Jim.
I will.
Jim, put your head in there. This is your friend that you met in the Exumas.
He's the captain of his own boat, but he's offered to crew for me, so I call him Captain J. Crew.
No, you need to call him First Mate J. Crew.
I'm taking the flag down.
He is
appropriately.
Taking the flag down. Isn't that a great crew kind of thing?
Taking the flag down.
Taking the flag down because it's sunset.
Oh yeah, that's what your first mate. But I think we need to, while he's on your boat, we need to call him First Mate J. Crew.
You mean Captain First Mate? Yeah, sure. No problem.
He wants people to know he's a captain. I get that. But there's only one captain, right?
There is only one captain.
I totally agree.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Tinsley.
What a pleasure. And I like to end these episodes the same way. Salty Abandon out.